Today we are announcing a historic indictment. It's a massive drug trafficking conspiracy spanning nearly a decade, involving tremendous volumes of fentanyl and narcotics.
4 o'clock in the morning in Arizona, 3,200 federal agents simultaneously stormed 147 locations at once, the sound of doors being blown open, echoing across the desert like one gigantic bomb. 5,500 suspects arrested, 62 tons of drugs, millions of dollars in cash, and the most horrifying secret of all 5 ultra-modern concrete tunnels running straight from Mexico into the United States, along with hundreds of Border Patrol officers and airport employees who had been bribed up to $500,000 in just 3 months. The man behind it all had only one name: El Architecto. This is not an action movie. This is the largest real-life operation in Arizona history, Operation Desert Citadel. Are you ready to know the whole truth? Watch now. Every target across the state of Arizona will be taken down tonight. There is no escape, no second chance will be given. Precisely 4 o'clock in the morning in Arizona, 3,200 federal agents have been mobilized, 5,500 arrest warrants executed in a single operation, 62 shipments containing illegal substances seized. This is the largest federal crackdown ever conducted in Arizona. For years, people believed the Arizona border was an impregnable and secure fortress. Yet federal agents have recently uncovered a truth that left even the most seasoned officers stunned. Deep beneath the desert floor, 5 underground tunnels stretch directly from Mexico into United States territory. These are not crude holes hastily dug into the earth. Each tunnel was solidly reinforced with concrete equipped with lighting systems, ventilation, and rails for transporting heavy cargo, almost like miniature subway lines built in total secrecy. At the end of each tunnel, officers discovered 62 large shipping containers. When they opened them, they found massive quantities of dangerous compounds like fentanyl and methamphetamine, along with stacks upon stacks of cash. Every shipment bore the unmistakable markings of the CJNG Cartel, one of the most dangerous criminal organizations currently operating in North America. But the most shocking revelation was not the volume of drugs. Hidden financial records revealed that several United States Border Patrol officers had received bribes of up to $480,000 in just 3 months. These payments were made to ensure the smugglers' shipments could cross the border without inspection. For many investigators, this was the strongest evidence yet that criminal networks had infiltrated deep into the United States security system. The discovery of these tunnels instantly ignited a multi-agency investigation involving HSI, DEA, and FBI. What initially seemed like an isolated case suddenly exposed a colossal underground criminal operation taking place right in the middle of the desert, a force powerful enough to move tons of illegal drugs into the country and bribe officials who had sworn to protect the border. The deeper federal investigators dug into the case, the more they realized those tunnels were only the beginning. What they uncovered next was far more alarming. A complete transportation network had been built, operating across multiple states and designed to funnel a colossal volume of narcotics straight into the heart of the United States. Through seized financial records, confiscated phones, and surveillance footage, agents began to piece together exactly how the system worked. Every single month, the CJNG cartel was capable of moving 2.4 tons of product from Mexico into Arizona, then onward to Phoenix, Chicago, and Detroit. This network did not rely on luck or chance. It relied on meticulous planning, bribery, and the corruption of key personnel. At Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport, the investigation revealed that 5 cargo handlers had been secretly paid to swap labels on containers. This simple act allowed the cartel's shipments to appear as medical supplies or priority cargo, slipping past security without raising any red flags. Each of these employees was earning tens of thousands of dollars every week. The money was funneled through hidden accounts and untraceable digital transactions. But even that wasn't the full picture. Agents discovered the cartel deliberately targeted workers who were drowning in debt or facing crushing family medical bills. Once those individuals accepted the first payment, they were trapped, forced to keep cooperating out of fear of exposure or violent retaliation. Every piece of evidence pointed to one central figure. In encrypted messages, surveillance photos, and payment ledgers, the same code name appeared over and over: El Architecto. He was believed to be the master architect behind the entire system, a man who had engineered the routes, the bribery schemes, and the communication channels with the precision of an engineer. For the federal task forces, one truth had become crystal clear. This was not just a smuggling operation. It was an organized infiltration of America's infrastructure. And if left unchecked, millions more lethal doses of fentanyl and methamphetamine would keep flooding into American cities with no one to stop them. By the time investigators connected every last piece of evidence, the 5 tunnels, the 2.4 ton per month pipeline, the bought-off airport workers, and the shadowy figure known only as El Architecto, the scale of the threat was undeniable. Federal leadership understood one thing perfectly: Arizona was facing the largest cartel infiltration in its history. The threat was no longer confined to the border. It had spread to airports, warehouses, transportation routes, and even law enforcement agencies themselves. If this network wasn't stopped immediately, thousands of pounds of fentanyl and methamphetamine would keep pouring into American cities every single month. At exactly 4:03 in the morning, after weeks of planning inside a secure command center, the United States launched a massive coordinated action codenamed Operation Desert Citadel. It would become the largest federal raid ever conducted in Arizona. A total of 3,200 agents from the FBI, DEA, HSI, CBP, United States Marshal Service, and state tactical units were deployed across the entire state. Their targets included 147 locations tied to the cartel's distribution chain, safe houses, warehouse fronts, corrupt logistics hubs, hidden apartments, and shell company offices. Each team had only a narrow window of a few minutes to strike, ensuring suspects could not warn one another or destroy evidence. When the operation kicked off, the silence of the desert night was completely shattered. Black Hawk helicopters roared over the skies of Phoenix and Tucson, circling above the quiet neighborhoods where the cartel's overseers lived discreetly in rented homes. Down below, armored vehicles rolled through residential streets, engines echoing off the walls. At every target, SWAT teams stacked up at the doors waiting for the green light. The moment the radio signal went out, dozens of steel breaching rams slammed into metal doors at the exact same second across Arizona, creating a single explosive roar that rolled for hundreds of miles. Inside the safe houses, chaos erupted instantly. Many cartel members were caught asleep, jolted awake by the blinding flash of stun grenades flooding the rooms. Others tried to bolt through back doors or across rooftops, only to find federal K-9 units and drones already blocking every escape route. At a warehouse outside Mesa, agents encountered a fortified loading bay stacked with crates marked as farm equipment. When the officers tore them open, they found bricks of fentanyl heat-sealed in plastic, stacked like construction blocks on a building site. The confrontations turned intense at several transportation hubs. In a converted auto repair shop in North Phoenix, agents were met with gunfire from armed guards protecting a shipment scheduled to move out that morning. Tactical teams responded with smoke rounds to force entry. Once inside, they uncovered a makeshift packaging station, scales, commercial vacuum sealers, hazmat suits, and nearly $1 million spread across folding tables. Every corner of the building bore the unmistakable precision of El Architecto's design. As the sun rose, the sheer scale of the crackdown became undeniable. More than 5,500 suspects were in custody statewide, from low-level mules to mid-level coordinators and corrupt insiders. Evidence trucks lined up outside seized properties, loaded pallet after pallet, with seized narcotics cache and weapons. At Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport, federal teams sealed off the cargo area where the 5 bribed employees had operated, shutting down an entire section for forensic processing. Operation Desert Citadel had delivered a devastating blow, but investigators knew this was only the beginning. Buried deep inside the seized, encrypted laptops and phones were the final clues that could unmask the man who built the entire system, El Architecto, whose capture would decide whether this storm truly marked the end of Arizona's darkest infiltration. As the dust from Operation Desert Citadel began to settle, federal analysts turned their focus to the most disturbing part of the entire case: just how deeply the CJNG network had burrowed into America's systems. Do you think 5 concrete tunnels and hundreds of bought-off officers were only the tip of the iceberg? The tunnels and the seized drugs were the visible, tangible parts. But the real danger, the part that went almost unnoticed, was the quiet corruption working in the background, allowing the cartel to operate like a shadow corporation hidden inside the country's own infrastructure. As agents processed thousands of confiscated devices, a chilling pattern emerged. The cartel had studied American institutions the way an engineer studies a building, mapping weak points, identifying vulnerable employees, and exploiting financial or personal hardships. Their method was patient and calculated, far more strategic than anything investigators had seen in Arizona in decades. The corruption started with the Border Patrol. Documents found inside the tunnels revealed regular bribes of $40,000 to $70,000 every 2 weeks, transferred through encrypted apps. The officers weren't chosen at random. They had been watched for months, targeted because they were drowning in debt-facing foreclosure or buried under massive medical bills. Cartel emissaries approached with sympathy, offering what looked like short-term loans. The moment they accepted the first payment, they were hooked. Within 3 months, each officer had pocketed close to $500,000. The exact same pattern repeated itself at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, where the 5 cargo handlers now under investigation hadn't started out as criminals either. Some were middle-aged workers with families. One had a daughter fighting leukemia. The cartel exploited these vulnerabilities with ruthless precision. Payments were structured as fake consulting fees from shell logistics companies. Supervisors never questioned the sudden new cars or home renovations because these workers stayed calm, punctual, and reliable, exactly the kind of people no one suspects. Airport surveillance footage revealed just how sophisticated the operation was. A simple label swap that took no more than 6 seconds rerouted entire containers into the emergency medical lane. From there, the shipments bypassed screening entirely and went straight to waiting trucks. A 6-second maneuver had allowed 2.4 tons of prohibited cargo to slip through every month. The infiltration had gone far beyond mere personnel. The cartel had quietly installed network repeaters, encrypted radios, and relay devices inside the warehouse rafters, giving them live updates on security schedules, cargo arrival times, and which officers were on duty. In an off-site storage facility outside Tucson, agents discovered a hidden server linked to a remote command center believed to be operated by El Architecto himself. This system tracked dozens of U.S. routes in real time, essentially a digital map of America's vulnerabilities. Federal officials were forced to confront a brutal truth. This was no longer a traditional smuggling operation. That was a structural breach, a criminal architecture designed to fuse seamlessly with legitimate infrastructure. The cartel had blurred the line between legal commerce and illicit trade so effectively that for years their network operated in plain sight. With hundreds of insiders already uncovered and thousands of encrypted files still under analysis, investigators realized the mission was shifting. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the deeper challenge lay ahead, exposing every remaining fissure that had allowed the infiltration to happen in the first place. As news of Operation Desert Citadel spread across Arizona, the public reaction was immediate and fierce. Many residents had felt for years that something was deeply wrong. Despite numerous red flags and the skyrocketing overdose numbers, few had imagined the true scale lurking right beneath their feet. The revelation of the underground tunnel system and 5,500 arrests sent shockwaves across Arizona, leaving residents stunned at how deeply an international criminal network had burrowed in. For the victims' families, it was painful confirmation that the crisis wasn't coming from small-time street dealers, but from a massive supply chain pumping poison into communities faster than any single effort could hope to stop. Some stood quietly holding photographs of sons, daughters, brothers, and parents, lost to overdose, silent reminders of just how personal this crisis had become. In smaller towns like Yuma, Nogales, and Casa Grande, the reaction mixed grief with raw anger. People demanded answers. How had Border Patrol officers been corrupted so easily? How had airport workers operated beneath the radar for years? Why had federal agencies uncovered what local authorities had missed for so long? Town hall meetings overflowed with citizens calling for tighter oversight, clearer information, and unmistakable protection along the border and at every transportation hub. Fear spread rapidly after the exposure of massive drug trafficking networks, causing parents to worry about school safety, near transportation routes, and businesses to fear that their warehouses might be exploited. The death rate associated with controlled substances surged by 380% in just 2 years, clearly revealing the scale of the systemic crisis. Operation Desert Citadel, conducted through the coordinated efforts of the Drug Enforcement Administration Federal Bureau of Investigation, Homeland Security Investigations, and Customs and Border Protection, dismantled the core of the criminal network, bringing temporary relief to the Arizona community. However, the risk remains that other groups could fill the resulting power vacuum, necessitating sustained pressure from authorities. Although the arrests achieved significant success, true recovery requires not only law enforcement action but also a comprehensive overhaul of security systems for borders, airports, and transportation corridors, carried out through the Arizona Redeployment Task Force in order to address persistent structural vulnerabilities and restore public confidence. Its mission was simple yet daunting: ensure nothing like this ever happens again. More than 900 additional Border Patrol agents were redeployed to the sector, along with newly trained rapid response teams specially equipped to detect tunnels and underground operations. These units rolled out advanced seismic sensors, fiber optic cables, and heat mapping drones to monitor areas where new tunnels might be dug. At the same time, the federal government approved the installation of 2,400 infrared cameras across critical border sectors, enabling real-time nighttime motion detection. Those efforts were paired with a full internal audit of CBP personnel, zeroing in on financial screening, lifestyle changes, and unexplained income. It was an uncomfortable but necessary step to identify any remaining compromised officers. Airports underwent major overhauls as well. At Phoenix Sky Harbor, an entirely new cargo tracking system was introduced that used biometric verification and tamper-proof digital seals that could not be swapped or altered without instantly alerting federal servers. Cargo handling crews were rotated far more frequently, and any employee with access to high-risk zones was required to complete a newly developed anti-corruption training program. For many workers, this was the first time they fully understood how a 6-second label swap had allowed a multi-million-dollar smuggling ring to operate. Cities across Arizona launched community programs to address the deeper fallout. Mental health services were expanded to meet the surge in overdose-related trauma. Schools received funding to improve campus security and provide resources for students affected by addiction and their families. Local authorities also partnered with the DEA to hold public briefings that explained how the pipeline had worked, helping residents grasp the complexity of the crisis and the importance of long-term vigilance. In the end, Operation Desert Citadel was more than a takedown. It was a warning. The tunnels, the bribes, the airport infiltration. They showed how fast a criminal network can grow when no one is watching and how deeply it can reach into the very systems meant to protect us. The lesson was stark. Security is not a wall. It is a responsibility. And when corruption goes unnoticed, danger spreads silently through communities, families, and entire states. Arizona fought back and won, but only because people paid attention, asked questions, and refused to accept what looked normal. That vigilance has to continue. The greatest lesson from Operation Desert Citadel wasn't the concrete tunnels or the 5,500 arrests. It was the brutal truth. The most dangerous enemy doesn't always carry a gun or cross the border in the dark. Sometimes they wear the same uniform, stand right beside you, and all it takes is one moment of weakness, dead a sick family member, for an entire system to collapse. Corruption isn't loud. It quietly eats away from the inside. That's why protecting the border doesn't just need taller walls or better cameras. It needs honest people and a society that doesn't let anyone become so desperate they'll sell their soul. That is the hard-won lesson Arizona leaves for all of us. Operation Desert Citadel came to an end, but the question still hangs in the air. Did we actually stop El Architecto, or has he simply stepped back to dig a new tunnel somewhere else? Arizona won a major battle, but the war against those who turn the border into a cash machine fueled by American blood is far from over. What do you think? Are the reforms being put in place strong enough? Or will we be staring at a Desert Citadel 2 in just a few years? Drop your thoughts below. Do you believe El Architecto is finally in a cage, or is he still out there free? Like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.